Contractors of Colorado. Welcome to our TED Talk put on by Women in Leadership, How to Speak with so people want to listen. I'm very interested in today's TED Talk and excited about it. Just want a couple housekeeping things. We will be recording today's session. Also, we have a chat room if you want to put questions in the chat room. I think the group is going to be small enough that we also can have some dialogue. I think that's the hope today, that we do have some dialogue going back and forth between our speakers and our participants. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the program. First, I'd like to thank HCC's Platinum members. These are the folks who are our highest level members of Hispanic contractors and ones who help us financially keep our doors open. Our board of directors, as you can see, they're from large and small businesses, very diverse group of individuals. These folks are volunteers. They volunteer their time to help set the direction for HCC. We certainly appreciate it. And if you work with any of them or know any of them, please thank them for their service for Hispanic contractors so that we can put on programs like this. I want to share with you our mission. A couple of things I want to point out on the mission is to strengthen and sustain our members' knowledge, connections, and voice, and this is part of how we do that, but both in the public and private sector within the Colorado construction industry. So we try to strive to meet our mission and meeting the needs of our membership. As I said, today this is hosted by Women in Leadership. I am going to turn this over to Summer Westbrook, who is one of the co-chairs for Women in Leadership. Summer?
So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for calling into today's TED Talk. If you have not joined our previous TED Talk, our intention of these events are to just really have kind of a roundtable discussion around different TED Talk topics. So you were sent the video before the meeting today, and hopefully you were able to watch that video. If you didn't, no worries, because I'm going to be really walking through a lot of the points that Julian spoke to in that TED Talk that we can really discuss today. But I do suggest if you didn't watch it, please watch it after this. It's a great video. He is an absolutely amazing speaker, which hence why he's speaking about being a powerful speaker. But he has some really amazing tips that aren't really your typical speaking tips. And I really wanted to walk through that today. So Women in Leadership, our mission is really to champion an inclusive environment to attract, develop, support, and retain women in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. As we all know, women are important to this industry. And it's important that we continue to support women throughout different events that we see that we're faced with on a daily basis. So this is just another avenue for us to touch base with women and men in the industry to make sure that we're really giving some professional development support that we all could use. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I do ask, if you can, please turn on your cameras. I want to see your faces. To make this a little bit more interactive, it is nice to see people. If you're having a bad hair day or something, you got your kids running around in the background, I totally get it. But I do kindly ask that you turn on your camera if you don't mind, because this will be a very conversational topic. So we can go into the next slide. But Julian Treasure, so he really focuses a lot on how impactful sound is to speaking. Our brains are wired crazy to really pick up sound. So the sound intent can really change your mind on if you need to defend yourself from that person. You're already making assumptions about someone before they even open their mouth. So he really studies the impact of sound and what that has on us as speakers. But in the TED Talk, I really enjoyed how he opened this up to talking about things that affect us as speakers before you're even actually speaking. So he talks about the 7 deadly sins of speaking. I'll list those out to you guys and then we can kind of talk in depth about that. But the first one is gossip. So if you know someone has gossiped before, when you have a speaking engagement with that person, you already kind of create distrust because you feel like, I don't really want to listen to that person speak because I think they're a gossiper. This really holds truth because our industry is so small. We are all so very connected. So what we do outside of speaking engagements is very impactful to if people are going to listen to us or not. The second one is judging. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and you know they are judging you from the get-go? It makes you want to pull out of that conversation. You probably don't want to speak to that person any further, but I know I've been in some situations like that before. Negativity. Anytime someone is being negative or has any type of negative connotation in their speaking engagement, you all automatically disengage. It actually affects a part in your brain that the same part in your brain that triggers hurt and pain. So when someone is being negative towards you, it really does shut you down. You no longer want to speak to that person or listen. Complaining. This is a big one. I can be guilty of that sometimes. Excuses, exaggeration, lying, and dogmatism. So I'm not here to talk politics today, but how many of us are recovering from the debate we saw last night? I don't care.
I was thinking of the debate when you were talking, Summer.
Yes, and you should have, because as I was looking at my notes today, I thought, wow, how applicable to this TED Talk, right? I don't care to all my Republican and Democrat friends. I don't care what side you're on. I think we all felt womp, 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 right? There's probably one or two things that we remembered from that debate because you could feel the hostility. So this is just an example to show how those 7 deadly sins of speaking can just hurt you as a speaker immediately as you start talking. If you show any of these signs, no one is going to want to truly listen to you. So do you guys have any examples that you've been through, especially professionally, where you went to go see someone speak and there was a lot of negative connotations made in that speaking engagement, or any examples that you can give us that really showed one of those 7 deadly sins of speaking? Any examples?
I don't have an example from a presentation I've listened to, but I do have an example from a phone call I got this morning that the person called me from a number I didn't recognize, so I answered. And this person is very gossipy. So when he said who it was, I was like, oh shoot, I wish I wouldn't have answered because I don't really want to talk to this person because I don't know what's going to get said outside of this conversation.
And that happens a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
As I said before, our industry is so well connected that sometimes for general contractors, subcontractors, architects on the phone call, a lot of you have probably been in an interview before with a client. And it's possible that that client has already looked you up on LinkedIn and has reached out to somebody who knows you. And if you have showed any of these 7 deadly sins of speaking with that person who knew you, it's going to already kind of turn that person off into listening to you when you speak, because they're going to constantly think about those negative signs of speaking that you showed with another person. It is so important that when we speak, and when it comes to being a good speaker, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be great at presenting, right? None of us are perfect at presenting. In fact, a lot of us did not go to school for that. However, in this industry, we have to do it a lot. You don't have to be a perfect speaker, but you have to speak with really good intent. So that's something that he really spoke to in the beginning of the TED Talk. Then he goes into speaking about the 4 cornerstones for powerful speech, and he calls it HAIL. The H stands for honesty. A stands for authenticity. I integrity, and L, love. So I know when you speak to someone, even when it's at, some sort of business development function, you probably aren't thinking, oh, I really need to speak with some love here. So they listen to me. But it all goes back to being a genuine person. And when you're a genuine person and having genuine conversation, it really does make you a good speaker. Yeah. So when it comes to the 4 cornerstones, do you guys have any examples of how people can practice to be more honest, have a little bit more integrity and love in conversation with people? And how we can improve that? And one of the things that he speaks to specifically, if you're a good listener, it really helps you touch base with people and make that connection. So the most important thing to being a good speaker is not necessarily the way that you're speaking, but are you able to listen to this person that you're speaking with one-on-one? So for example, if you're working on a team interview for a pursuit, are you really listening to the feedback that has been given to you so you can create a genuine response to that person? Listening is something that we all have to do better at. When we get so busy, we all deal with harsh deadlines. It's really easy to not truly listen to people. But one thing that he speaks to in another one of his TED Talks, which is really interesting, is how do we be conscious? How can we be conscious listeners? And some of that is put your phone away, make sure that you don't have any distractions. If you can't hear someone say, hey, can you talk a little louder? I couldn't hear that, or repeating the question to them. Listening is very important to that 4 cornerstone powerful speech that he talks about. And it's kind of the center of that cornerstone. And he goes into that in another TED Talk. And that episode is actually really great as well. Now going into the tools. So first he starts with those, things of not to do on a daily basis in interaction. Then he goes into the cornerstones, but then he talks specifically to some tools of how can you manipulate the way that you talk to make sure that people listen to you. So the first one is register. So your voice, the depth of your voice. A lot of people say that they're drawn to lower voices that just have a little bit more depth to it. I know that have any of you guys recorded yourself before a speech or an interview? Because it is very eye-opening. I know the first time that I recorded myself, I was like, oh my, I sound like a little kid. No wonder why when I call people, they're like, what do you need? So it really does help you understand, if you were to record yourself, how you sound. So if you are a person who does a lot of talks, and again, it doesn't have to be speeches, but if you're a leader within your company or within a different organization, you really do, I highly suggest that you record yourself before giving a talk to employees or having some sort of speech, because it is very eye-opening to hear yourself. And it really helps you practice. Just like he said, your voice is just another machine. In order for the machine to work, you have to get some oil in it. You need to practice it. You need to use it. You can't just expect, okay, I have these notes and I'm just going to work on that. No, you have to actually record yourself and practice. It's something that takes a lot of mindfulness.
And Summer, not to interrupt, but when you're recording, when you're using a device, it's best not to hold the device so close to your mouth so that the projection is not true. You need to set it away from you so that when you listen to it, you know really how your projection really is coming across.
That is a really good point. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, or listening, like I find my my message on my cell phone voicemail, and when you listen back, or when I listen back, I'm like, oh, I got to re-record that. Even something so simple as saying, you know, you've reached my cell phone. I'm, you know, thanks for calling. I'll get back to you. You're like, wow, that didn't sound anything like I thought it would, to where people would believe me when I say I'll I'll return your call.
No, exactly. It's key. It's very helpful. Another
Can I make one more comment?
Yeah.
This Hunter. I always have to be conscious of tone because I can be a little cranky sometimes. I know that my tone is really harsh. And so sometimes I will say to people working around me, if I know I'm going to get on a call that I think I'm going to have tone with, say, you've got to give me the high sign if you hear the tone so I can try to pull it back before it's too late.
But that's great that you recognize that, and you know, and you've kind of warned the people around you as well. It's like, hey, I recognize that my tone sometimes isn't great. So, you know, forewarning people, knowing and being aware of where you're not so strong at with speaking is really important to be a good speaker. That's a really great point, Hunter. My sister is the same way. She always says, like, gosh, everyone just doesn't get me. Like, I'm like, it's your tone. So that's something that she's personally working on, but a lot of people deal with that. And that's actually one of the tools that he talks to. He calls it prosody, which is don't speak with, you know, a certain tone. Like be really careful of what type of tone you're using when you speak. So that is actually one of the tools that he suggests people to really pay attention to when you listen back to how you speak. Timbre. So he said, you know, a lot of people, when they listen to a good speaker, that person usually has a rich, smooth voice. And it's true. I can even think back to some speakers that I would think highly of when they speak in public, and they really do have this rich, smooth voice. Not every single one of us has that. I feel like that's something that you're just kind of born with, and that's okay if you don't have it. Pace. This one is huge. Pace is important because you cannot speak with speed and expect people to understand you. You have to speak slowly. I can get really crazy with pace because my family talks so fast. My mom is Puerto Rican, and anybody who knows Puerto Ricans, we like to blah, 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 when we're all together. So I really do have to be mindful of just the pace in which I talk. And that's something that I still struggle with today, especially if I'm sitting in on an interview. I'm very mindful, and it's something that I really practice a lot, is pacing myself when I talk. Does anybody else struggle with that? Lisa?
Sometimes you feel like you have a lot to get in, and you want, you know, unless you are really prepared. And I think that's where it's better for me, is when I know I'm prepared for a conversation or a presentation, that if I know how much, what I need to say and the window of time that I have it for the bit, it's better. But that first kind of go around, you're so worried. I'm so worried about getting my point across, that I want to get everything in at one time, and I want to make sure that I have done this and this and this and this. And pretty soon you're like, wow, you know, step back, slow it down, and you'd be surprised how much you can fit into your 30 seconds or 1 minute. But it takes preparation, and I think an awareness. I was so happy to hear Hunter say she's aware of her sound, and mine is volume. I have to worry so much about volume because I want to be heard. I want to make sure that what I'm hearing gets across. And that's where I have to be aware as well. So I'm glad Hunter shared that too, because I think when you are more self-aware, you can hone in your speed, your tone, your volume to be a more effective conversationalist.
Exactly.
Too, that it's not just speed, it can be slow. I just was watching a video of a presentation of one of our managers, and he was very thoughtful and precise and slow. You know, there's that real happy medium. You don't want to be too fast, but you also, you got to pick up the pace. The whole time I'm watching his videos, like, dude, come on, get it going.
And that's what's hard, right? Is if someone's speaking too slowly or too softly, like that's all you can focus on when that person is speaking. You can't even focus on the message because you've already focused on something else. So yeah, if you're dealing with, you know, if you have a really important presentation to give or you're presenting in any type of capacity, practicing that is so important. Because like I said, even some of our best speakers in this company, they practice. Our CEO, Greg Schmidt, is one of the best public speakers I've ever worked with. And in fact, he's taught me a lot, but he still practices to this day. And he's given millions of speeches, millions of talks, and he still practices with his wife, and his wife gives him honest feedback. And sometimes that is the best type of practice you can get, is with someone who knows you and knows your flaws and what you're not great at, so they can help you catch that when you're practicing a speech. That is very important. So if you don't want to record yourself and watch the video and sit through that, have someone who knows you really well sit through that and give you some honest feedback. So after pace, this kind of follows with it, silence. How many of us use our ums and filler words? I do that sometimes. It is okay to have silence. If you're lost in thought and you can't think of the word, you don't need to use a filler word. You can just pause. In fact, filler words are so distracting. When I practice with our teams for interviews, filler words are probably the most distracting things in an interview, because I've already lost track of what you're saying, kind of like with the tone that we were talking about or level of voice. You can't pay attention to someone who's constantly saying and I know I've sat in interviews before where I've actually wrote down the number of ums that I heard because it was so crazy. That was more entertaining for me. So please practice not using those filler words. And in fact, I had sat in on another training through PRSA, and they had, talked a lot about how to gain trust in the way that you speak. And a lot of speakers who we perceive as wonderful speakers just don't use filler words. In fact, they use a steady pace when they talk, and they just pause when they can't think of the word. And you would never know while they're speaking that they maybe tripped up or forgot where they were at in their train of thought, and they just decided to pause and then move on. So that's something that's really important, especially when you're in a stressful situation. Dealing with a presentation, it can be so hard to handle that stress. But if you really slow it down, but like Hunter said, don't slow it too much. If you slow it down a little bit, it really helps you gain your train of thought and what exactly you're speaking to. Pitch. This is one that's big for me. How many people feel like they deal with pitch issues when they're speaking? Do you feel like your pitch is too high? It can be a real issue. I feel like my pitch is a bit high. So it is something that I work on a lot. But that is also another tool that he suggests people to work on. You want to make sure that with your pitch, are you raising your voice when you need to? Are you unnecessarily raising your voice in your talk where it doesn't need to be raised? So really be mindful of that. There are some voice and warm-up exercises. I have used this with people in the past, especially for interviews. I have worked with teams who just so happened that we had every single person on that team who was a soft speaker and just couldn't talk. If you are a soft speaker, stand when you talk. It helps tremendously with your tone and your pitch if you feel like you're lacking with that. It also helps you gain attention from the room. I know some people right now who are going through interviews, and I actually have them stand up at their desks because I feel that they speak better when they're standing. So we do have the stand desks, and even if it is a Zoom interview, I have them stand because I know that for whatever reason, they feel a little bit more confident when they're standing and speaking. So if you are on a Zoom call giving a presentation and you feel like standing helps you, do that virtually. It really does help. How many of you guys have been in some virtual interviews or virtual presentations lately? A few of you. Is there any lessons learned that you had in those talks that you would like to share with everyone that maybe was a little bit different?
Summer, this is Mara Hildebrand. I don't know most of you, but I will share for me, I'm a very typically, I'm an engineer, you know, I'm awkward, I'm nervous. One thing that is, I guess there's not that many people on the call, but in order to calm myself down, I will lay down on the ground and put my feet up in the air before, he did this, you know, in the talk, and I get that. I need to calm my body.
Yeah.
I don't know if other people are that way, but that helps me.
I know a lot of people that way. My dad is an engineer, and so I know how the engineer brain works. I don't have that brain. I wish I did, but you do have to find what works for you to calm yourself down. So I kind of think of it like a game of some sort. I know my son, when he plays football, he has to listen to a certain song to get him hyped up. And you really do have to do that for a talk or for a really important presentation. What puts you in the right train of thought? What calms you? Whether it's music or exercise, you need to do that to calm your nerves down, because that can completely block you from speaking. Even if you know a project inside and out and you know exactly how to build it, you were a part of that estimate from the very beginning, for whatever reason, when we put a camera on us or when we're the center in a room, it just makes us dwindle and we feel like people are judging us. Remember, at the end of the day, especially in this profession, whenever you're giving a talk or you're brought into something to sell a job or speak to something, you are an expert. People are calling in, they are inviting you to an interview because they just want to hear from you. They want to hear your knowledge and what you have to bring. And you have it, right? I mean, that's why you've been in this industry for so long. All you need to do is deliver it. So finding those tools and ways to calm yourself down is so important. I'm glad that you said that, because you know, everyone needs to find that one thing that you need to do to just calm your nerves. Does anybody else have any examples that you might be doing to just kind of calm yourself before you give an important presentation?
So Summer, I will say that over the years, I've done many presentations and spoken in front of many groups. And yet to this day, I still get nervous every single time. And then I think that kind of helps me ground myself before I begin. And what I've learned is I have to, especially if I'm making a presentation or I'm talking, is to absolutely have memorized the very beginning and the pace of that beginning. Because once you get through that piece, you're more relaxed and you're able to move better throughout the rest of the presentation. If I don't practice that first part, do not have that memorized and ready to go, I will fumble, and then I am fumbling through the rest of the presentation. So it's starting off in a calm manner, just knowing yourself, what works, what to say, even if it's the same words all the time, it just brings some calmness to you. And then I also, one of the tricks I've always done, especially when I'm doing the groups that I don't know well, don't know who they are, and it's very easy to do on Zoom, is I act like I am talking to somebody I know very well, or to a room of 1 or 2 people rather than several people. That helps me a lot. And I also, in presentations, it looks like I'm making eye contact, but I'm really not making eye contact. So I'm looking straight right above their heads, just to try to make it look like I'm having a conversation with folks. And it makes it easier for me until I'm comfortable. And then the direct eye contact works really well.
Eye contact is huge to build trust in conversation. That is something that I'm constantly reminding people of in interview preps, is making sure that you skim the room. Make sure that you look at the people that you're speaking to, because not only is it good to build that personal interaction, but you can actually get some feedback about what you're saying, because you can really pick up if you said, hey, you know, we feel that our estimate is right in line where it needs to be. And if you're looking at people and you see someone kind of squirming and they're like, I mean, you'll say, hey, you know, do you guys feel like there's a mark that we missed here? So really understanding and skimming the room is so important to getting feedback as you're talking and adjusting things as you need to. I mean, we do it every day when we have personal interactions with people. That's really important, Chris. Have any of you guys listened to a speaker and just cringed after listening because what they did in that speech just completely distracted you? I know we talked about pace, and you know, Hunter explained that she heard someone recently who was speaking so slow. But do any of you guys have any other examples of someone you recently heard where it was just like, oh my gosh, save this person?
I've seen presentations where the speaker spoke to the screen the entire time and never to the audience. And it's easy at that point as a member of the audience to check out, and you're no longer paying attention because you can read the screen yourself, and there's no connection to the speaker at all of what they're trying to say.
That's very important. I think virtual meetings make things a little difficult for us. I know we had a virtual event that we had Dina Wyatt speak to. And one of the important things that she brought up, when you're in a speaking engagement and it's virtual, you need to be scrolling through that list of faces and make sure that you're paying attention to people's reactions. So I've definitely been doing that throughout this presentation. But that was some really good feedback that Dina gave, is, you know, understanding the feedback of others virtually is just as important, and if not probably more important, when you're on a virtual call. So you need to make sure that you understand the platform that you're using to practice being able to see everyone's faces at once and use that platform before your meeting or your presentation, so that you know exactly how you can easily skim the faces of everyone who's in your meeting. That's very important. So do any of you guys feel like you struggle with something specific when giving a presentation, or something that you would like to work on, or maybe would like some feedback on of how you can probably improve?
For me, there you go, the words. For me, it's the confidence, going into it confidently, and you guys have given a lot of pointers on the practice and the recording. I have something coming up next week, so I'm really appreciative of the thoughts on that. I don't do it a lot, so I think that the more I do it, and the more I do it, maybe even without an audience, it'll go over better. But the confidence piece is tough for me.
Yeah, the confidence that's hard for a lot of people to get over. You're not the only one. I graduated with a public relations major. I had to do talks all the time in college. It never bothered me. I still get nervous when I have to speak at something. I think it's just human nature. When we feel like people are judging us or staring at us, you know, we're constantly thinking about what does that person think about what I'm saying or how I'm delivering the message. But one thing to note, and I said this earlier, is you're the expert, right? They want to hear from you because you know what you're talking about. That's the most important thing. At the end of the day, if you stumble on a few words, it's okay. They just want to know, how are you going to make my life better? Or what tools can you give me to help understand X, Y, and Z better? So as long as you have that knowledge there, know that that's your confidence. You know that topic, you know that job, and that's what matters the most. We've had a few people in the office who just hate speaking, and anytime they get reeled into an interview, I just even telling them you're going to be in an interview, they just are like, what? No. Well, can you pick someone else? No, you know, everyone has the ability to be a good speaker. And what I really enjoy about interviews and working with people in the AEC industry is you guys do amazing stuff. You guys are building roadways, you're building infrastructure, you're building homes, you're making real impact in the community, and you're helping clients. And you guys have crazy knowledge and insight as to how to make people's lives better. So just showing that knowledge and really studying a project or studying a topic and knowing it inside and out, that's where your confidence should be. Don't get hung up. See, I did the Don't get hung up on the pace too much. Record yourself, practice again, try to fix the tweaks that you know you need to work on. Do it one more time to listen to your tone, your pace, making sure you're not using filler words, and leave it at that. You also don't want to burn yourself out with the practices. And Hunter, I'm sure you probably know, and you've seen this before.
I'm big on this because I don't memorize because I just can't. But I always coach our people too, is that my friends that are engineers, y'all are passionate about what you do, and you are so smart about your topics and what you're going into your interview about. You spend a long time estimating it, researching it, whatever. And so I always try to tell people, just show your passion. You know, if you don't say what you really meant to say, but you show me how passionate you are about that, that's what I really pick up on is your passion for it. And sometimes I think if you over practice, you like practice out your passion and it seems rote. And I always want to see people's passion. I don't care what you say so much as if I know you're passionate about it. That's what's important to me. And I was just going to say, I am much better at doing presentations for people I don't know. To talk to a room of people I know, I am a nervous wreck because I know that the keyword people are saying, well, she's public information. That's her expertise. She's doing a terrible job. But if I'm talking to a room of strangers, they don't really know if I'm good or not good. You know, they don't have an expectation that I'm going to be great at it. Like I feel like people that know me are going to say, damn, she's supposed to be great at this. This is terrible. So that's me.
That is so true to so many levels, because I know even for me, when I'm brought into an interview to present, I get so nervous to present in front of the people that I work with every day, because just like you said, Hunter, well, I'm in marketing and business development. I should be a great speaker. I should be able to sell anything. No, I mean, I get nervous just like everybody else. I have to do my own little thing to get my brain in check. And if I'm busy, sometimes I stumble on a word. It's okay. What Hunter said is so important. Showing passion in what you're speaking to brings you far along in that presentation. They will forget what you stumbled on, how many filler words you used. If you actually find a way to show that passion and knowledge that you have for whatever you're speaking to. I have seen some people present who just knew this job inside and out and were just super passionate into what the project meant for our company. And if that shows, that takes you a long way. So you don't have to be perfect. And, you know, topics like this, TED Talks, like what Julian gave, it's to really help support you to figure out, you know, what are some tricks to being a good speaker and how can I pay attention to be better? But you're not going to be perfect. No one is perfect. I don't know of any perfect speaker. Like I said, Greg Schmidt here is great, but he still stumbles from time to time, and he still loses his train of thought if he's speaking to something and is a little bit passionate about it. It's easy to get caught up in your emotion and forget what you were talking about. But, you know, it's okay to use these tools and tips and tricks. But yeah, that passion, you can't teach that. Like you need to show that, and that knowledge is so important. Do any of you guys give, you know, other presentations? Are you involved in interviews? Do you feel like you struggle with presenting to employees within your department?
I would agree with what Hunter said, that I think it's easier to present to somebody outside of your company. And there's a couple things as far as practicing. I can't remember which one of our interview prep people told me this, but I think it was practice 12 times. And that's easy to do if you have like a 3-minute part. And if I do practice that many times, it really just kind of flows out of my mouth then for me. Like it really helps me if I have practiced that many times to just say what I want to say, even though it's not the same thing every time, but without being very nervous, because I can remember what I wanted to say. If it's an hour-long presentation, obviously 12 times is way too many. And the other thing that always sticks out in my head is one of the times that we presented, it was for the city and county of Denver, but one of the people in the audience was very, like, every time you made eye contact with her, she gave you a big smile. And that was very calming. And I thought, I have to remember that when I'm a member of the audience, to smile at the presenter, because it just helps them keep going and have some confidence in what they're saying.
That is very important too. And I think it goes back to, if you want to be a good speaker, you've got to be a good listener. You have to. I mean, Hunter probably knows this with public relations, but you can't be a genuine speaker and give genuine feedback if you're not listening to people. I've been in so many conversations with people, especially at events, just BD events, where you feel like someone's just talking to you just to talk, and they're glancing the room as they talk to you. That is the rudest thing that you could do to somebody. I would really suggest, if you do that right now, I've done it before and I've caught myself from doing it, but anytime you engage with someone at an event, you've got to listen to that person, whether it's one-on-one or if it's in a big room where you're getting feedback from people. Really listen to people. Be in that moment. I know that we all have 1,000 things going on right now, especially in these times, but if you can be a great listener, that can go a long way with being a great speaker. Hunter, would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree, and I would say I'm not great at it. I am the world's worst at knowing people's names. So somehow that very first communication, I don't listen. And then I'll know their dog's name. I'll know how many children they have. I'll know where they live, but I will not know their name. And so somehow I try it, but I have not mastered it yet. I have to start listening sooner than later. And I wish that everyone had their name tattooed on their forehead, because I am the worst, and I will recognize your face. And as I said, I'll know everything about you, but I will not know your name. So when I see you ladies and gentlemen in another situation, don't be mad. I am terrible at it. But that's a huge piece, and people that are good at that, that's a big thing. I am always impressed. Drives me crazy. I mean, Kiwi people that I see, and they're like, "Hey, Hunter, good to see you." And I'm like, "Oh, damn." I got nothing.
You know, it puts you on the spot.
That's a great skill.
Mm-hmm. It is. Actually, it's funny that you say that. Two people in my life have really stressed that. And one was my grandpa. And my grandpa was a very successful man. And when I was younger, I was about 10 years old, I met someone at my school who knew him. And we had just moved to the mainland from Hawaii. Or no, I was about 14, not 10. But we had just moved to the mainland from Hawaii, and, you know, we're getting to know people. I come home, I tell my grandpa, "Hey, I met someone who knows you today at school." And he said, "Well, what was their name?" I said, "I don't know." And he was like, "How do you ever expect to be successful in life if you cannot remember someone's name?" And I was like, whoa, that's a lot to throw on a 14-year-old, right? But I mean, it's because my grandpa was so good at that. And when he talked to someone, he was giving you his full attention. And he was an impactful speaker, not because he was great at it, but because he genuinely had this ability to really listen to people. And another person is actually my son's uncle, who just passed away. And some of you probably know who he is, but Gail Sayers. That is my son's great uncle, who he was really close with. But that was something that Gail was amazing at. He was just very good listener, and he knew people's names. And when you spoke to him, he listened. I mean, he was blocking everything out around him and truly listening to you. And I feel like it's really hard to do that now in this time because, like I said, we've got a billion things going on, and these things are so distracting. When you guys are speaking or you're having any type of engagement with people, please make sure your phones are off or the face is down, because it is really difficult to make connection with people when you are too concerned about the next email that's going to be in your inbox. You're going to get to that email. It will be fine. But you don't want to get the reputation of somebody who just isn't a great listener, one-on-one listener especially. That's very important. How many of you guys are mindful about turning off your phones with certain events? That's good, a few of you. I can be bad at it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting situation because, as you all know, we host a lot of events. And so I wear multiple hats at one time. And so somebody comes up and starts talking to me when I am trying to make sure that others are getting in. And so it is hard to remember to pay attention to the individual you're talking to at that time, knowing that you have so many other things to do. And the phone thing is also difficult because a lot of people get lost or they're running late and they're calling you or texting you and letting you know where they're at in order so you know how the rest of the program or evening is going to go. And I always try to make sure that when I'm talking to somebody, if that situation is happening, why I'm looking at my phone, why am I checking it? Because there's a couple people I'm still waiting for to arrive that are speakers. They haven't showed up yet. A couple folks have gotten lost. I'm just trying to make sure they get here. So if they understand that it's just not my personal habit of constantly looking at my phone, but I've given them a warning as to why I may need to be checking into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's okay to check back in with people if you felt like you were, because, you know, it is hard, Chris, when you're running events and you need to mingle with people at the same time. You can't fully give everyone your attention, right? Because you're trying to make sure an event goes smoothly or, you know, everyone's taken care of. But maybe shoot that person a text or send them an email and say, "Hey, I'm really glad I got to meet with you today. I'm so sorry I didn't get to talk to you very long, but I would love to meet up with you for coffee, or I'll give you a call soon. So just being mindful of when you do have an interaction with someone and you're busy and you can't give them your full attention, reach out to that person later. They're going to forgive you. They're going to forget about it.
Absolutely.
But when you do little things like that, it builds your reputation, right? You start to get this reputation of, wow, Lisa she's very mindful. Like,
Yeah, that's the word that came to my brain just as you were talking, is being really mindful. What has helped me, and at first I think I made this it was a New Year's resolution, and I'm terrible at them, and I generally try not to make them because it's just setting myself up for failure. But the one that I have continued, because I'm still working on it, was one that I did for my family, but it was to be present, which means when I'm with my kiddo or my husband, that I do try still to put my phone away unless there's a really specific reason or something that I know I'm waiting on. And so be present. And I have to remind myself, but a couple of years ago, I had a client, and we would have a lot of working sessions. And in my head, the old me was a working session meant that I was multitasking. I'm working on something on my computer while I'm trying to listen, or taking notes on my computer. And what I found is even if I was taking notes on my computer, there's something about this clickety clack that really shows that I wasn't being present. And so therefore, when I try to interject or listen or, say something in the meeting, it was almost like, oh yeah, I have to take a break from this in order to pay attention to these people. And I found that I could talk more confidently about what was happening in the working session if I honestly was taking notes with a pen and paper, because I was much more present than any distraction that would come up on my computer, or that email that would pop in, or my phone is on silent. And that mindfulness helps me, again, be more present and speak more clearly and confidently when I'm in those situations. So it really turned out to be a resolution that I had to work on in both my personal and professional life. And I think that has helped me a lot, but I still work on it. So I've kept the resolution because it's a practice, and I haven't perfected it yet. So
that's awesome that you realize that, because I was in a meeting with an architect firm, and their marketing lead was just great. She knew how to reel in the attention of people in the room. And one of the rules that she had for that meeting to make sure that everyone was effective was, your laptops are not allowed to be open in this next hour. You must take notes on a notepad. If you've got an important meeting and you really need everybody speaking in it, to make sure you're getting everyone's attention, sometimes you do have to lay down those rules, because we are all guilty of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got so many, and Julian Treasure, the speaker to this TED Talk, he talks a lot about noises and sounds in a few of his other TED Talks that he does. And he talks a lot about how distracting our world is and how it prevents us from being effective speakers, and how we can use these tips and tricks or these tools to maintain that noise that we're constantly hearing. So a lot of it really does stem to mindfulness, and mindfulness can be so helpful in so many different areas of your professional life and personal life as well, with your kids, with your significant other. But yeah, if you can find a way to just try to be more mindful, especially in the moments where it matters, it can go such a long way. So important. Another thing that I wanted to say, because Julian Treasure brings this up in another one of his interviews, and I thought this was quite interesting, because like I said, he talks a lot about how to be a good speaker. It doesn't necessarily mean for a presentation, but just a good speaker in general. One of the things that he suggests is, if you're at a business function and you know you're going to be seeing clients or important partners, don't drink. Don't drink. So if you know that you're going to be seeing important people that day and you're there for work, put the drink down, drink some water, drink some sparkling water, because if that hinders you from speaking well with people and you can't listen that well to people while having a drink at a business function, don't do it. It's not worth it. So I thought that was really interesting because, hey, I'm in construction. There's beer everywhere I go, right? But I have been very mindful in the past few years when I first saw one of his original TED Talks of, wow, like I probably should definitely not drink at certain functions because I don't know if I'm doing a good job at listening to people or if how I'm speaking when I drink. It's probably not great. And even if it is 1 or 2 drinks, you know, if you're okay with 1 drink and you feel comfortable with that, great. But sometimes it can make you a little bit more confident with just not having that drink hindering your thought process. So I thought that was another interesting tidbit that he brought up in one of his TED Talks. But before we end the talk, I'm going to leave you guys with a to-do. And feel free to email me because I would love to conversate with you guys and see how things are going, just to follow up on some of these discussions. But I want you guys to think, when he talks about those 7 deadly sins of speaking, which one of those are you guilty of? And what can you do to work around that deadly sin of speaking to make sure that you're being a productive speaker? So after this meeting today, whenever you find time, I want you to write that down, put it somewhere on your desk, and really take initiative to work on that deadly sin of speaking that has been lingering with you for some time. Work on that and make sure that that's a focus for you for the next 6 months. And if you really are passionate about being a better speaker, a better listener, and you focus on 1 or 2 of those 7 deadly sins of speaking that you might be guilty of, try to improve that and follow up with me because I want to know how things are going for you guys. If you guys ever need anything, or, you know, Amara, you have a speaking engagement, if you want to reach out to me to talk about some things that you're speaking to, please contact me. I'm here to support you guys. We're all in this together. Things have been so hectic. So we want this group to be very conversational. We want to support each other. We want to give people resources where we can. And we have amazing people in this talk today who have amazing resources. So please, let's reach out to one another and stay in contact.
All right,
Really
Summer,
appreciate it.
that was awesome. Any questions for Summer or others?
Summer, what is your email address? Is that on the, did I miss it?
I will type it in the chat real quick so you guys can all save it.
Yeah, this was really helpful for me, and I will take you up on that.
Yeah,
You might have to block me.
No, reach out to me. I had a friend call me this morning, and I call him too for other things. And you know, you need support within this industry. It goes beyond your job. You know, we've got to support one another. We're all going through a lot right now, and the HCC is a great resource to do that with some amazing people. So yes, reach out to Lisa or I.
Yeah, absolutely. We're and that I loved how you said that, is that we're a resource, not just when we're on a TED Talk conversation. You know, we are here to support anyone in the construction industry, and certainly we love to help women as a support system and get comfortable with what we're doing and what we're working on, and especially with the environment that we're all working in. You know, maybe public speaking feels like one more scary thing, but again, Summer and I would love to be a resource. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today. We will be in touch with you guys. We want this TED Talk to really be a series moving forward. And when we can start meeting in person, we'd like different companies to host a TED Talk so we can all meet in person and ours to make sure that this moves forward to an in-person roundtable discussion.
Yeah, and if you're interested in hosting an online forum, there's a couple of ways that we've done these already and can help you get comfortable with hosting. But if you'd like to host a virtual, we would love that. And certainly you get to help us pick the topic and the TED Talk and the talking points. So feel free in person once we can do that. If you want to be a host too, we'd love to entertain those ideas. So please reach out. We'd love that.
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Great. Awesome. You guys are great. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We will send a presentation out afterwards, and we'll send out Summer and Lisa's contact information as well as HTC's. We do ask everyone to please follow us on social media and put your comments out there. This is really helpful when these types of TED Talks happen and the interest that we generate. We want to share that with others, and we want to share, if you got something out of today's, put a short comment out on social media. Really helps with others and spurs the ideas of some future TED Talks as well. So share, share, share is all I can say with that. We will be sending out to everyone who was signed up today about today's presentation, TED Talk. This is how the feedback is important to us, so we know we are providing good quality information, TED Talks to everyone. We know that not every TED Talk is for everybody, but we want to know is the material, the subject matters, what you really want to hear, and it helps us schedule for next year. And if you're also interested in hosting, as Lisa talked about, you could let Lisa, Summer, or myself know here at HCC, and we'll certainly get you in touch to make sure those things happen. Or if you have other topics, let us know, and we'll certainly put those in front of the committee as well to make that happen. We appreciate your time today. I'll also let you know that this is our schedule for October. We have quite a few things, some Contract Academy classes. We have some other items coming up. We'll have a diversity conversation later in October as well. I think it'll be very much in tune with what we talked about today. So we hope that you will join us for future events. Again, as Hispanic contractors, thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully you found this time rewarding and beneficial as I did. Summer, thank you so much for leading that discussion.
No problem. I'll see you guys later. I hope you have a great week. Conquer the week.